Let's team up to boost your channel, potentially gaining you 1,000 per stream with around 1,000 new viewers. Reach me on Discord Twinfinite20. Twinfinite20. Oh hi, getting started in about 10 minutes. Toss any stories or links into the Discord. Discord. https discord gg beignet tridx 8.
Oh, hi, hello, how you doing? My name is Waldo, and I am here to feel the politics with you. I'm going to hop into uh, our Discord right here. You can see the link, and talk to my friend
More
Thomas.
like Waldo the liberal shit stream.
There you go. See, Tyler? He gets it. Thomas, are you there?
Hello.
Oh, hi, how's it going?
Good.
Are you incredibly quiet, or do I just
I am.
have the thing? I have my knob turned too low. You say hello to the people.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, I might turn you up just a little bit. Uh, I have to watch on YouTube so I can lock my phone and still listen. Yeah, as soon as that happens. How's the volume? If is Thomas coming through very good? Tyler is giving us a thumbs down, but that just could be uh, he could just be giving me the thumbs down because he doesn't like me very much. That's okay. Uh, so let's see. We have got um, some politics to talk about today. Uh, he is a tad quiet, says Sewells. Okay, I'll turn him up and turn him up.
How
Uh,
about now?
Hey, that sounds pretty good. You were in exactly the right audio levels on my OBS screen. So
You
that should
think
do
you
it.
know it all.
I do know it
Oh,
all, Tyler. I know lots of things. So the so yeah, just how's it going?
pretty good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I got a haircut. The chops are still there, right?
Yeah, yeah. Much more kempt.
But shorter. Yeah, they're still there, but they're just not sticking out quite so far.
Signs of a beta male MH.
They were getting quite bushy before.
Yeah, they were way out there. But now they are more under control. Had to get the rest of it knocked down because it was getting out of hand. Um, and I'll just I found a nice little place, little local place that I could walk to. Guy did a good job. The last one didn't do such a good job, but I think I might go there again. They did a good job, and I'm going to go there again. Oh my goodness.
Nice. I actually cut my own hair most of the time nowadays.
Yeah, but back in the day, I just had my old lady buzz everything off, and then, but now I'm allowed to have hair and allowed to have sideburns and all that fun stuff. So, uh, I think uh, we talked last week and all that fun stuff. There was a few things that happened earlier this week that I wanted to talk about on Wednesday, but we never got around to it. So I've got a couple of olds. They're not quite news anymore. They're olds. But apparently, anything to talk about before we jump right into the politics?
No? Go ahead.
Okay. Donald Trump is now a big fan of Obamacare. He said it, not me. He loves it. He loves Obamacare. This is shocking to you, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, he is super on board for it. I'm going to bring up his literal words, not mine. Turn off that game capture. Turn on window capture. Press a button right there. This is his truth tweet thing from his website, Truth Social, where he
Uh-huh.
says, I am not running to terminate ACA as crooked Joe Budden disinformates and misinformates all the time. I'm running to close the border, stop inflation, make our economy great, strengthen our military, and make the ACA or Obamacare, as it's known, much better, stronger, and far less expensive. In other words, make the ACA much, much, much better for far less money or cost to the great American citizens who've been decimated by Biden, his record inflation, bad economy, Afghanistan catastrophe, and just about everything else. Crooked Joe Biden is by far the worst president in the history of the United States. MAGA 2024. Okay, great. He's not running to terminate ACA. Is this more of that shit talk that he likes to do? Or is he really on board for ACA Obamacare?
Well, even back in his last presidency, they didn't actually try to terminate Obamacare.
Yeah, they
Um,
did.
they they were taking
It
parts
was
out of it out, I
it was
believe.
one vote away. John McCain's one vote was the one vote that stopped it from being completely removed.
Are you sure that wasn't just a reworking of it?
I'm pretty sure that was the one thing that would remove it entirely. But because they were all very mad at John McCain, they were all screaming at him about how he didn't uh, vote the way they wanted him to.
Hmm.
Also, he promised to repeal it many, 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 many times. He looked into the camera. He said, "I will repeal Obamacare. We are going to repeal Obamacare. We're going to repeal it. We're going to replace it." Repeal and replace was his stump speech. He never told us what he was going to replace it with because he doesn't have any actual ideas, and his fans also don't have any ideas on how to replace it. But repeal was the word they used. That's not a word I chose for them. That's the word they chose.
Really quick. So, Frisco, is my mic quality bad?
Oh, I think he's talking about me. Um, oh yeah, I think that's YouTube chat also. Hey Frisco is in YouTube chat, so it's always way behind. I think we're all right now. I'm looking at the numbers. Right when you jumped on, it was a little low, but I think we're good now. But yes. Let me think. Is he on board for Obamacare? Is this the new super cool Trump that I have to support now?
I don't think it is.
Pushing for
I,
socialist medicine?
I think that your idea of Obamacare being strengthened is not the same as his idea.
Okay, so what does he mean? Oh God, this only gets worse. So when he says strengthen Obamacare, he means remove
Oh, I have
important
no
parts
idea.
of it? No one knows what
Probably.
he's talking about. That's what I'm saying. That is one of my biggest complaints about him, is that nobody knows what the hell he's talking about. Uh, if he's strengthening it and making it cost less to the American people, that subsidize it by the government. Hopefully, maybe that would actually baby step other people or insurance companies into lowering their prices. And if they didn't lower the prices because they have fewer customers, right? Then more people would have to be thrown off of the private insurance. Those people are now without insurance. They would go to the Obamacare markets. They would get what they want and get what they need, and that would lower again the amount of people in private insurance, which means they have to raise their prices, which means people can't afford it, which means they come to the Obamacare thing again and again and again, and it's a cycle where private insurance shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until only the really rich can afford it, and the public options and the public Obamacare gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and has more people paying into it, which means it's more usable because there's a larger pool of people from which to draw from.
That sounds terrible.
How does that sound terrible? That sounds like a great fucking plan. I'm not even kidding. That's amazing. That is how actual insurance should work. What's terrible
Um,
about that?
well, because I don't trust the government to run anything efficiently, and this is essentially baby stepping into, you know, our universal healthcare system.
Yes, great plan. Good job. High five. Let's baby step people into universal health care. I'm not even kidding. I'm not being facetious. Do that. Yes. Donald Trump
I
is
think
on
we've had this debate before.
Donald Trump is on board for it. He wants it to be cheaper for the people. Donald Trump on board for baby stepping into socialized medicine. Either he doesn't know he's on board for it, or he's an idiot, which is probably the case. He doesn't know what he's for. He doesn't know what he's against. He has no principles. He has no values. He has only tomorrow's headline. That's all he has is tomorrow's headline. That's all he's got. Beyond that, he is blind.
I
This
can certainly tell you one area where there's no way it's supported, which would be an individual mandate, which I believe got struck down very early on, which is
right.
one of the key components of the plan for the ACA as it was originally
That
designed.
that individual mandate was suggesting that you had to have some sort of health insurance. Uh,
Correct.
and if yeah, okay, I don't care either way. If you have an individual mandate, fine. If you don't, fine. It's not something that some hill I want to die on, for or against. If there are people who choose not to have health insurance, that is fine with me. But if the government says, "Hey, everybody has to have some because if you don't, it harms the system," I can be on board with that as well. Uh, it, this was the individual mandate. You're right, was a very big talking point for the Republican types, and I don't entirely know why.
Well, it's essentially if you mandate that people have health insurance, even if they don't want it, it becomes essentially a tax on something that's not a privilege, right?
Something
It's
that's not a privilege.
so, for example, why are we allowed to mandate that you have liability insurance for your car before you go drive it? Well, because if you hurt somebody with your car, you need to be able to, um, you know, what word am I missing here?
Recompense them.
Uh, yeah, that works. Recompense them. Um, but not having health insurance, having health insurance is not tied to any particular privilege. It's literally, I'm alive right now.
The privilege is being able
The
to see a
privilege of
doctor.
breathing.
Being able to see
Uh,
a doctor. Insurance isn't about keeping you healthy, it's about seeing a doctor.
well, you still can see a doctor without insurance.
Not if you can't afford it, or not if you can't get in, or they won't take you because you don't have insurance. There are doctors who don't accept patients if they don't have insurance.
You can still see a doctor if you don't have insurance.
You can see a doctor if you can find one, sure. And you can pay a lot of money for it. If that's the life you choose, I'm okay with you choosing that. But I'm okay
Sure.
with the government also saying, hey, there's a system in place and we all need to follow the system. And the system benefits people and is a better situation altogether, honestly. Um, I'm okay with having an individual mandate that you have to sign a paper to get out of. I'm okay with that. That's the system I would suggest anyway. If you really,
See, I don't understand why you always seem to err on the side of you have to opt out rather than opt in. Why?
yeah, because there's only two options, man. There's a government running it inefficiently, or there's a company running it for obscene profit. Those are your two options, boss. You're choosing obscene profit every time, and I'm choosing government inefficiency. There is no third option. There is no other way. If there's another way, if there's a third option, I'd listen to it. But it always comes down to those two: the government running it inefficiently, or a company running it for obscene profit. And yeah, opt out. So you're right. Because most people won't go through the extra steps because they don't actually care that much. This individual mandate that's so enraged the Republicans, they don't actually give a shit. They're just poking holes. They're just uh, poking the bear. They're just pointing at shit that they don't like. They're not actually offering an alternative. They're not making anything better. They're just talking shit.
I don't agree.
Do do
I
I
think that
have health insurance? Yes. Do you? Yes. But why do we have it? Because it's intelligent. It's a good fucking choice, right? It is a good choice, isn't it?
sure.
Okay. And if you want to willingly and intentionally make the choice to not do the smart, intelligent, well thought out thing, you can, but I want you to have to clear a hurdle to do that.
Well, see, but here's the thing: is that it depends on your age and whatnot in terms of and your relative level of health in terms of whether or not health insurance is a good idea in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
and what level of it do you have in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Choices to be made. Okay.
what's good for a 20-year-old, fit young man to have in terms of his health care is not the same as what's good for a 60-year-old, or a
I
70-year-old.
I agree, which is why they should make the choice. And if that choice is I refuse to be a part of this system, then they have to just sign a piece of paper that says that. I'm all right with that. I'm okay
Do
with
their
it.
taxes or whatever their premium thing, do they not have to pay that then?
Do they not have to pay the premium? If they don't want health coverage, then they can opt out of that. Fine. I'm okay with that. But they have
Can
to
they opt
sign a
out
piece
of
of paper
any
out.
taxes that go towards the ACA?
Can they opt out of any taxes that go towards the ACA? Probably not. I don't get to opt out of taxes for
Mm.
foreign wars, and you don't get to opt out of taxes that go towards a border that isn't being enforced the way you want it to. You don't get to choose which taxes will go where. You can
Well, yeah, but
almost
I can
choose.
elect the lawmakers that decide
Sure,
what we spend that money on.
sure. And right now, there is a lawmaker
Uh-huh.
named Donald Trump who's all on board with the ACA. He loves it. He wants some more of it. He wants to make it cheaper for people. If we listen to the words that Donald Trump just typed, and this is a few days old, but if we listen to the words that he typed there, he wants to
All it
make it
says is I'm not
cheaper.
running to terminate the ACA.
He doesn't want to terminate it anymore, which is a change on his part. I'm suggesting that he's flip-flopped on that, which is acceptable. I want him to flip from his bad positions to good ones. This is good. If he makes it cheaper for the American people, how does he make it cheaper for the American people? Let's say that he wants to make it cheaper. How does he do that?
Let's see. I do wonder if he has it listed on his platform.
Well, it maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. His platform is whatever he's currently fucking saying. He could go back on this tomorrow, and probably will, if somebody points it out to him. Yeah, it's probably not on his campaign website. Stary Sig. I bet you're right. And Thomas, it's probably not on his thing. So he's just talking shit.
No, it's on there.
Okay, it's on there.
Better healthcare choices at lower costs, but it doesn't have anything about the ACA in it, except for eliminating the individual mandate,
Which they already did.
which they already did. Yeah, it's a list of all the stuff that he did for healthcare while he was in office. So let's see.
So which Donald Trump do we trust? The one from last year,
It says
or the one?
enterprise medical billing, increase fairness through price transparency, reduce the cost of prescription drugs and health insurance premiums, and protect Medicare, Social Security, and patients' pre-existing conditions. That's what's on his website.
Okay, great. He wants to lower the cost of the ACA. How does he do so?
Oh, I have no idea. I don't write these fucking laws.
Well, how could he do so? We're pontificating. In chat, you can't really expect him to follow through with what he says a lot of the time. Then why vote for him? He never really has. But if people want to do something to grab onto it, it isn't there on the site for sure. He never says exactly how he's going to do things either. I agree with you, Stary. He doesn't say specifics. He talks in.
I think Stary is agreeing with you.
Right, yeah, I know, and I'm agreeing with you. But why would somebody vote for that? Why would we vote for the guy who can't do the things that he's promising? Promises something different tomorrow. Promises something different from what he promised 4 years ago. 4 years ago, he promised to get rid of it. Now he's saying he's going to make it better. He's full of shit. We shouldn't pay attention to him. He should not be leading the country. That's the point that I'm going to get to. But if we're still pontificating, Thomas, how would we increase or decrease the amount that people have to pay for the ACA? I can think of a couple of ways. Have more people in it so that they each pay a little bit less, because it's this giant pool, right? That's how the insurance. That's how the idea of insurance works. Is that thousands of people pay in every month, and then the ones who need it take from it. Or how else would we do increase it? Is the government spending money on it? Those are the only ways that I can think of. He probably hasn't thought of that. You're right, and I think Stary's agreeing with me that he hasn't thought about those things. But I think it's
Well, he
a great
doesn't
idea.
have to, though.
He doesn't have to. But he doesn't have to think about laws and the future of the country and how things are going to operate and run in the future.
Well, just like with most presidents lately, mostly the laws are written by some interns, and then the cliff notes are given to all the politicians, and this goes for everyone in office right now. And then the cliff notes are given to them, and then they say yes or no.
I'd agree with that. That wouldn't surprise me that the individual senators don't read literally every single line of the bill. They're very long. They figure out what the gist is. They figure out the best parts, the worst parts, the ups, the downs, the pros and the cons, and then they vote on it, or they try and amend it to get out the con that they don't like the most. That's fine. I mean, I don't see a problem with that.
I mean, I'm
99%.
sure there's plenty of input you can get from, experts in the field rather than having Donald Trump, who's never run insurance before, actually come up with the ways to make it cheaper.
Okay. I agree. Check on the experts, find out what would actually make it work, what would make it better.
I believe we have to pass it first to know what's in it was spoken by Nancy Pelosi.
I know. She's dumb though.
No, I was responding to Stereo.
Oh, okay. I forgot. So we have to pass it first. Oh, yeah. It was. It was definitely Nancy Pelosi. We have to find out. We have to pass the bill to find out what's in the bill. That's not true. It's never been true. Like I don't. She was just drunk that day. It's fine. She was having a senior moment. It happens. If we had fewer seniors in there, there would be fewer senior moments. So that would be nice too. Um, is anybody gonna pay attention to this? I haven't heard anybody talking about him tweeting this.
Well,
Is
it
it
wasn't
just
tweeted. It was on Truth
it was
Social, which nobody's on.
okay?
I mean, unless you're on Facebook with a lot of older folks, you probably didn't hear about this at all. I didn't.
I know that's what's killing me. Is this entire political system that we have? I'm paying attention to. I'm looking at the things. Donald Trump himself is literally telling us his secret inner thoughts. They're insane, and no one notices.
Oh no, I think he's playing to his base on Truth Social.
How does True Social love ACA? They would hate it. They hate Obamacare. They scream bloody murder about having death panels. If you screamed about death panels, you're on Truth Social following Donald Trump.
Okay, so maybe they disagree with him on this then.
And
But
this is one of the biggest laws in the country. It literally touches everybody. The individual mandate applies to everyone. The ACA and the healthcare is one of the biggest damn things in the world right now, and nobody cares that he's giving us his inner thoughts, and his inner thoughts are chaos. I'm going to suggest again that his inner thoughts are chaotic because he doesn't know what he's talking about or what's going on around him. He's absolutely out of his mind, and I don't know what or how he keeps getting support. I don't get it. How does a hard right Republican who's anti-Obamacare support Donald Trump? What are they thinking, Thomas? What are they? What are they? What are they? What's going on in their brains?
hold on. Say again.
What are the Republican? What are his fans thinking? I don't get it. His brain is filled with chaos. Oh, it's an ad break. Oh my goodness. Oh my, an ad break. Amazing. I guess we'll wait 60 seconds or something like that. I had no idea that we had ad breaks. I don't know how to control them or to point them in any specific direction. So the question I'm going to ask you in another 30 seconds though is, what are his followers thinking, and why? And why? Let me check my other stream here. Let me think. Okay, right here, and yeah. Okay, go ahead, Thomas. What are his fans thinking, and why?
Well, what they're really thinking is you have two options. You can vote for the guy that stands against all of the things that you stand for in a very sleepy way. Or you can vote for the guy who stands more in line with the things that you stand for, that you agree with, but in a more chaotic way. And they're choosing the guy that is on their side more.
They're choosing chaos over
No,
conservatism, if you ask me. That's what it looks like to me. Donald Trump is far more chaotic than Joe Biden. Do you agree with that sentence?
sure,
Okay.
but only in terms of their behaviors as people. I mean, as a uh, president, I mean, when we talk about policies, I would say that our border is more chaotic under Biden than it is under Trump.
Okay. It's more
So it just
chaotic.
matters. It just depends on what you're looking at in terms of what you're calling chaos.
Okay. Chaos. I wouldn't say that the border is more chaotic, but again, that's a different topic. I think Donald Trump is, as a person, more chaotic. As a tweeter, as a truther, more chaotic. The things he says will change day after day after day, and
Okay.
I can't imagine that being conservative. He's chaos. Joe Biden is more stay completely still. Don't move. Don't do anything. Be right here. He wants to conserve the status quo, and Donald Trump wants to change everything. He's not conservative. What does conserve mean if not keep the thing you got? If I
Well,
conserve my house, it would be exactly the same forever, right?
I don't think you're using these words correctly.
I don't
Um,
I don't think the Republicans use these words correctly. I don't think they do. You and I argue about definitions literally every day. What does conservative mean then?
um, conserve our rights. Uh, it means that you're more on the right, realistically.
I know, and I think they use
Whereas,
the word wrongly. I think they're using the word conservative incorrectly.
well, if I wish to conserve or preserve the state of the border when it was, actually enforced,
It's never been enforced.
but then somebody came along and made it so it wasn't enforced, well, of course it would be a change then to start enforcing it again.
Okay.
But I would still call enforcing it again a conservative policy.
I think Sewell's is getting to the same point I am here in chat. We have progressives, conservatives, and regressives, and I I don't know if I want to call Donald Trump a regressive. I mean, he does kind of. They do want to take the country backwards, um, but I think he's far more chaotic than he is regressive. Yeah, I think we have progressives, conservatives, and chaos. Uh,
Or you could just call it the left and the right.
or the left and the right. Well, Joe Biden's not on the left. He's a conservative. Joe Biden's a conservative. He wants, under my definition, he wants the things to stay the same. There is a status quo, and he would like to keep that. And he will drive policy to keep things the same. That sounds like conservatism to me. Yeah, Frisco's challenging you. The getting rid of Roe versus Wade was a loss of rights, and I have very often called it that. And it is the conservatives, in quotation marks, who got rid of that right.
The right was not properly established,
I
and
don't
now it
care.
is being properly established
And we're
throughout the
going into the
states.
same thing again. I don't care that it was properly established. If you get the rights by bloody revolution, then you got those rights. If you get those rights through uh, protests, then you got those rights. If you got those rights through an ugly legislative session, then you got those rights. If you got those rights by voting for them, then you got those rights. I don't care how you got them. I'd like them to stay. And he and usually, and that's the position I would take, is that the conservatives got rid of that right because it wasn't processed properly. And I think that's insane. I can't imagine why you would want to do something like that unless you really, 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 really don't want that right, which they don't. I don't think that you, Thomas, are a hard abortion pro-lifer, but the people on your side are lying about what they want. The people on the conservative side, the people who are saying that talking point that you just gave me, that it wasn't a right and it wasn't done properly, are lying. They just hate abortion. They don't want it, and they don't want anybody else to have one.
Well, I think that what you're seeing now is the correct avenues are now being taken to establish abortion as a right for the states that actually want it. That's what they're doing.
I know,
And that
it's
is the correct way to
chaos.
do it.
It's literally chaos. We have 50 different rules in 50 different states, and they're all up in the air right now. I mean, is that not chaos? I've called it chaos in the past. There are 50 different rules in 50 different states, and it's chaos. And those rules are being attacked by different judges from different places. Alabama just made IVF illegal and then re-legalized it. Chaos. It's not law.
Yeah,
It's not order.
it's a process. This is
We had
making
that
things
process
happen
nailed
is a
down.
process.
We had that in
We did not.
process. We did. We literally did have that process done on the books, solid law for 20 years. And then they didn't like it, so they upset it, caused chaos, and now we have more chaos.
That's fine. Totally fine.
I don't like chaos. Let's not have more chaos. Let's have less. And the chaos is the opposite of society.
Well, a process naturally involves a certain amount of figuring things out. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, this is what we're working on right now. And yes, sometimes there is, I mean, even if you take something like the scientific method, for example,
Mhm.
right? You create a hypothesis, you test the hypothesis, you see what worked and what didn't, you reformulate your hypothesis. Well, tested it, what worked and didn't, reformulate, test again, right? So that is what's happening in our legal system right now. We spent the last 50 years under Roe v. Wade saying
Mhm.
the earth is flat.
No.
And now,
What? How did you get to that? We spent the past 50 years on a solid basis saying this is allowed and this isn't. They set up the trimester system, which isn't scientific, but it is a legal framework that you can use. They set a framework, they had structure, and every single year, more and more conservatives took a drill to that structure until it fell apart.
because the structure wasn't, it didn't have a strong foundation.
Because they kept drilling holes in it. Because they didn't like
No.
it. Yes, literally.
Never had
If I
a
had to,
strong foundation
if
to
I
begin
were
with.
an artist, I would draw a house that's called Roe versus Wade, and then I would have conservatives underneath it, drilling it and putting holes in it and burning it with acid and hitting it with shovels and hitting it with pickaxes and screaming about how it's not stable. They're the ones drilling the holes. The people who are telling you it's not stable, Thomas, are the ones drilling the holes.
I'm telling you it wasn't stable
Because
because
the
it wasn't.
people. Okay,
It
sorry.
didn't legalize abortion in the first place.
No, it didn't. It created that that trimester system, and it let people have the right.
That's also not what it was. Roe v. Wade was a question about individual privacy,
Right. Fine.
and
I don't care.
they ruled that someone's that abortion fell under the privacy law or whatever.
Great.
I have to look at it again.
Okay.
But it
The
didn't
point
actually
is,
legalize abortion.
it allowed it by this part of the law. It had a structure, and I'm not saying that it's perfect. Nothing is perfect, but there was a crack. And you're right. The original Roe versus Wade had a crack, and instead of working to patch that crack, right-wing, very vocal opponents drilled holes in that crack, and then they put wedges in that crack, and they beat that crack with a hammer, and then they hit it with a jackhammer, and then they told you that it wasn't stable. And I don't trust them. I think they're lying. They made it more unstable, and then cried about it being unstable. It's a very common Republican thing to do. Government doesn't work, elect me, and I'll prove it. It's a thing that they tend to do. Sewells asks if conservatives have a noble calling to root out all instability. Good question. Um, uh, there is instability within the laws, within the rules, within almost everything. But what in trying to fix it, if you make more chaos, you make more instability. Maybe I'll ask you this, Thomas. Do we have more stability on the abortion question today than we did 10 years ago?
No, but we will.
No, but we will. I don't think we will until we have a solid uh, reworking of putting us back to where we were. We actually have to.
Well, I think it's more like, so maybe this analogy will be a little more apt than the foundation one.
Okay.
Imagine you have a ball of clay,
Mhm.
right? Or maybe Play-Doh or something. And you shape it into a structure. And that structure has, 3 spindly little legs and whatnot. And it's pretty easy to tip that thing over. Well, what if you don't like that structure very much and you
Mhm.
want to make it so that you have a stronger structure to work with? What do you have to do with that ball of clay? You have to ball the whole thing back up, which means you're going to take it, you're going to mold it in your hands, make it so the whole clay is moldable again, and then you make a better structure.
Tear it down and start over.
Now, that when you're molding that clay, is it formless? Yes. Does that mean, would you call that chaos? I'm sure you would.
Yeah, I would.
But then you build a new structure with the clay,
Okay.
and it's a better one than the one you had before. That's why I'm saying yes, we
Best
will
case
have a
scenario.
better, more stable system later.
Best case scenario.
Because
You're giving us the best case scenario. Yeah. And worst case is that a lot of people die in that chaos. A lot of people die in that reforming. And when it comes back up, it's not any better than it was, or it's exactly the same as it was before. That's what I'm thinking. That's honestly what I'm thinking. Is that the Supreme Court overturns it. The states do their insane chaos shit. For years we have chaos, and then the government will come together and put up exactly what it once was.
oh, they won't though.
I
That's
think they
that's
will.
totally they won't. And the reason why they won't is because next time the government steps in, it won't be a Supreme Court action that makes this happen. The actual legislature will do it the bright way.
I hope so, but I doubt it. The Supreme Court's the only part of the government that's doing anything anymore, uh, because Congress is scared to do anything. Uh, maybe you're right. Maybe there is so much chaos in 50 different states with 50 different rules that the Senate and the House come together to pass something that makes sense. I doubt that. If and I have looked at people who are anti-abortion activists. It doesn't matter how sturdy that is. It doesn't matter how strong that base is. They're going to drill holes in it and then tell you it's unsteady and it won't work. They're going to find that one tiny little position that doesn't work. And the one edge case is what they'll find and scream about it and make it
Well,
worse.
let them scream.
Well, sometimes what they're screaming is changing the rules, state laws and stuff like that. They used to happen all the time back in the 2010s and stuff like that, where they would get a state senator to pass a law that you can't do this procedure unless you have doors that are 9 feet wide or something like that. They'll find the thing that the abortion center doesn't have and mandate that that be the law, that it does have it. Like the doors weren't 9 feet wide, so you can't do them. And then that forces them, this center, to now restructure or move to a different building and stuff like that. And then it just causes them to run out of money and not be able to function. And they would call that a win because that's what they want. Because they don't care actually about the law. They just use the law to hurt the people they don't like. The people they don't like are the abortionists. And the people doing the abortions. They don't like them, so they're going to use the law to hurt them. And that's what it seems like they're doing to me.
I mean, I see where you're coming from. I don't agree that these people are acting with malicious intent, but I will say it would be a lot more difficult to do what you're saying once the state laws are in place.
It would be more difficult to do that once the state laws are in place. State laws change all the time. State lawmakers have 100 votes difference between them. I mean, they're what I'm getting at. It's easier to get elected as a state senator than a federal senator. You have much fewer people looking at you and paying attention to you. I know the names of many federal senators, but state senators, not that many. They're much low profile. They're under the radar. So when they change things and they break the system, you might not know it. State law is far more malleable than federal law, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And people are responsible for their governments. I think they have a greater responsibility to be active at the state level than they do at the federal level, even.
How do we convince people to pay attention to their state more often than the gigantic presidential race? I don't think we can.
You make it so the federal government is a little weaker so that it doesn't subsume all the state laws within it the way that it currently does with a lot of things. And you let the states be more active in governing themselves.
Okay. From chat, wouldn't it be more constructive if most of our collective labor went to making sure we have a functioning infrastructure and everyone's basic needs is fulfilled instead of being wasted on the further enrichment of the capitalist class? We've got a socialist. I'm glad you're here, Gamer James. It's usually me against a whole chat full of Trump supporters. So I appreciate you being here. Let's stick on this topic though. Thomas is suggesting that state authority is more important than the federal. I don't know how that would work. The federal is larger. It's all of us. It's on top of the states.
I understand that, and I'm saying that it has become too large, it's overreaching in a lot of ways. For example, why is the legal drinking age across the country 21? Well, it's because every state says it's 21. And why do the states say it's 21? Well, because the federal government will not give you money for certain things if you don't comply with what the federal government wants for that rule.
Okay.
Which I don't think should be happening.
I think you're describing society. That's what I think you're describing. Our society has certain rules, obligations, and I know this might make you mad, but standards. I know you talk about standards a lot, but if that standard exists, why would you not punish people who don't comply with it or appreciate it or follow it?
Well, this isn't people. This is states. This is like entire states that have people that they govern, right? Or rather, people are electing their representatives in their state, and their state should have the ability to make more rules than they currently do within that state, is what I'm saying.
So
if they could, people would probably pay more attention to their state government.
So the federal government should be 10 laws, and
Smaller.
then the state governments would take those 10 laws and add 10 caveats to each one?
What do you mean? No.
Well, you're suggesting that there should be very few federal laws and then more state laws. So there's a framework, is what you're getting at, yes? And just
Well,
I'm
yes,
trying
there
to
should be
understand.
fewer. I'm not saying very few. There should be fewer federal laws and rules and regulations, and there should be more state ones.
Okay, I'm kind of on board for that. But the reason that I think it goes wrong is that those states will harm the freedom of the people because we have become uh, what's the word? Partisan and separate. The rural people have different expectations than the urban people. The
Hmm.
the the person who lives in Kansas City, Missouri, has different law expectations than the person who lives on a farm in Missouri. And because you can't, well, I guess you're right. The state should be setting those expectations, uh,
I mean,
and the
that states
federal will
have a
always
lot of
be
people in
above.
them.
The federal will always be above, and I'm okay with the federal government setting laws and expectations and rules and uh, standards and things like that. Let's go back to your example of the drinking age being 21. This is, I'm saying, not that important a rule. So I'm willing to say that if a state wants to have a different rule, they could. Do you accept that idea that one state would have a different rule than the other?
Yes.
Okay. And
And in fact, if a state decided that the rule was the drinking age is now 25 and not
mhm,
21,
mhm.
I would accept that that state made that choice,
Okay. I
even though
could.
that's a reduction in freedom.
That is a
At the
reduction of
same
freedom. I would
time,
agree.
I'd also be fine if one of the states said, hey, the age is 18.
Okay. So you'd accept that. Um,
Yeah.
but the federal government has a agenda, literally, to lower the harm that alcohol causes. And so what they, according to you, and I'm sure you're right. I'm not doubting you. Um, they would withhold what, federal funding if you changed that law?
Yeah, it's funding for like roads and whatnot.
Funding for roads and stuff like that. Okay, because according to them, 18-year-olds getting plastered are ruining the roads and killing people. So they have created an incentive structure to follow the standard. Is that not a good plan? The federal government setting incentive structures to follow what they have expertly, in quotation marks, decided?
Wait, sorry, I got distracted. Say again.
So the federal government, under the way you're describing it to me, the federal government has said these 18-year-olds are hazardous and harmful, so we will incentivize the states to follow our standard. That sounds like a good system to me.
See, I don't agree. And
And I'm
the
trying to
reason
figure
I
out
don't
why.
agree is because the level of control that people should have over themselves should be greater, I think, than uh, it currently is, really, in terms of the laws that govern them. So I think that a state already has however many millions of people in it,
Hmm.
right? So what's good for that millions of people is not also as, what's good for another state with millions of people in it. So those separate groups of those millions of people should be able to choose certain rules for themselves.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm on board.
Now that goes down to the county or city level as well, that different jurisdictions should have a certain amount of authority over themselves. And what I'm saying is that the higher you go, the more you dilute their authority over them, their own governance, right? So when you have those few million people, or however many tens of millions, I know there's like a lot of people in California and
Hmm.
Texas and whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, but the higher you go, the more people are having an influence over that same group. And you may be expanding it to the point where now you've got the people in one state competing with the people in another state for what's good for either of them. And I don't like that. I want them to be able to set their rules in their state for their communities.
Okay, I can appreciate that. I can, and I think that that is an acceptable way to try to direct your government and your society. Um, it, and the only reason I would not trust a state person like that is because they're uh, smaller and less. They're going to fly under the radar, is what I would worry about. That there are, I mean, there are still dry counties in Texas, right, where you cannot buy any alcohol at all, and that's because
Sure.
it affects so few people, and they like it that way. That it is that taking away the rights? Yeah, kind of. Is it taking away the freedom? Yeah, to some extent. Um, but they like it, and it flies under the radar. And if you don't like that, you can usually leave. And if you were born and raised like I was in a dry county, you would then leave and never come back, which I have. Uh, so, but that creates that is that not a partisan thing? If you really dislike the gun laws, the drinking laws, the taxes, incentives, and structures of your very small community, you would leave, and anybody left there would be the people who like it or don't pay attention to it or aren't affected by it. And it's the opposite of melting pot, is what I'm trying to get to. It is inevitably an us versus them partisan creating device.
Oh, I disagree entirely, actually. I think that
Okay.
giving the people a more granular ability to govern themselves actually creates a less partisan divide because you don't have then the people in a much bluer area arguing with the people in a much more red area over what the federal policy should be.
Balkanization? Like I think this leads to balkanization. I think it's the term I would use. There's tiny little pockets all over the place of people who all agree with each other, and they don't leave their little pocket.
We have that happening right now under our current system.
Okay, and I
It's
think it's dangerous.
you have
I
a
think
whole
it's
bunch of
bad.
people in the cities that are all blue, and then you have a whole bunch of people in the rural areas that are all red.
Right, and I think that's a bad thing. I want to
Okay,
stir the
so
pot.
shouldn't
Melting
shouldn't
pots only work if you
maybe
stir them around.
so maybe the counties, which the cities would be part of, should have more ability to govern themselves as well. And then so all this is an argument for a more granular system
Mm,
because it's already there. Like you can look at the electoral map and you see where all the blue people are and where
hmm
all the red people are.
hmm
And I mean that it if the blue people really want to have abortion in their area, then they should be allowed to do that. I think, and then they should be allowed to write the laws that say that that's allowed. And if there are red people in an area that are very, very against that, then they should also be able to write the laws that say we're not going to have that here.
Okay. Yeah, and what I'm worried is that creates more partisan divide. That creates the us versus them.
No, it doesn't. What it does is
You just
because the
described us versus them.
no, not at all. And this actually eliminates the us versus them. This is where, hey, you have laws over there that we maybe don't like, but we have our own here, and we can still come together for things like the common defense. You are still my countrymen, and we can still put an army together, and we can defend our nation against all out exterior threats.
No, we can't. Because they have those rules and we, us, are different than them. They are not real America. Those are big city, those are those are Democrat run cities. We're not going to work with them. They're not real America. I, I, you, yeah, I think that you're describing us versus them. That's what you're describing.
I'm not, though.
You just described it. You just said they have their rules and we have ours. Us versus them. Actually, them versus us. They have their stuff. They have their rules. They have their lines. They have their borders, and we have ours, where things are different, where there are different rules, and we get what we want, and they stay on their side, and they get what they want.
I don't agree with that sentiment. I think
That's
that,
what it sounds like to me that you're describing.
well, let's put it this way. Florida has been making a lot of rules that run very contrary to other states like New York and whatnot.
Yes.
If New York was invaded, do you think that people from Florida would refuse to go and fight against the invaders in New York?
Would people from Florida go to help? Probably, but those would be military people, wouldn't be civilians. There is a shared military between
Okay.
Florida and I mean the federal
Are
military
you
exists.
uh-huh. Are you suggesting that at some point, if Florida's rules become too divergent from those of California or New York, that they will decide to stop contributing to the federal military?
They they would secede, possibly, if they really, really, really wanted to. Texas talks about seceding all the time,
Well, that's
and
because
it's
Texas doesn't like the federal government
because they
continuing
don't like
to
the federal
enforce
government. Right? They want
rules against
balkanization.
them.
Right? They want that difference. They want those people to be over there, and our people to be right here, and they will draw a line in between them. Is
It's
that not
That's
what you're
not
describing?
balkanization.
That's balkanization. Yeah, of course it is.
I don't believe the Balkans have a federal government, do they?
No, they don't. They have 1,000 little ethnic groups and 1,000 little borders, and they don't work together at all, and they hate each other.
Well, that's the thing about the Constitution is we do work together in some
Not
cases.
if you've seceded from the Union.
Well, the
If
thing that
if
causes them to
Florida,
secede from the thing that causes them to secede from the Union or want to is because the people from California are trying to tell the people from Florida how they're supposed to live.
if they're part of the same system and they're part of the same union,
Uh-huh.
then there might be some merit to what they're saying. I'm not saying that California gets to choose every single law for Florida, but if Florida is doing things that are harmful to all the people within the union, then you have some right and some way to sort it out. That's what the federal government ought to be doing.
I
If
don't think that they I don't think that certain federal rules should be federal rules. I think that the states should be deciding them.
okay,
And
and
I think that the problem is when the federal government is coming up with rules that I think states should be deciding.
mhm,
Florida and California have two very different sets of ideas about what those rules should be.
okay,
I think they should be allowed to set those rules for themselves, and then the people of California can be happy with their rule, and the people of Florida can be happy with their rule.
okay. I I'm okay with some situations about that happening. If you want to talk about land use or uh, uh, tax structure or certain individual things, I'm okay with it. But things that the closer it gets to a right, the less I'm okay with it.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously, if it is in violation of the rules we all agreed to in the Constitution as a condition of joining the Union, then yeah,
Okay.
then it should be someone should step in. The federal government should step in. But
Uh,
my problem is that the government is enforcing rules that were never intended to be part of the federal government.
okay. I'm going to move on to the next story. But if you've got some of those, prepare them, and we'll take a stance on them next week. How's that sound? If they're specifically, I mean, because we are being a little bit vague about rules and laws and things like that between California and Florida, stuff like that. But if you've got one specifically, set it up, and next week we can take a look at it. How does that sound?
Sure.
Okay, if there's, and that's what I'm looking for. The federal government did a thing. You're absolutely think that that ought to be a state decision, and the
Hmm.
federal government is forcing it on them somehow. I would look at that and I would say, oh yeah, well, I'll maybe I'll agree with you, or maybe I'll disagree and say, hey, well, no, it's fine for the federal government to set that up. So if you've got egregious, very noticeable examples, bring them up and I'll take a look at them and we can talk about them in the Discord or in the chat. So let me talk to chat for a moment. We got some chatters in here. Uh, the left-wing chat today, Thomas. Sorry. Usually it's not, but today we got a couple of communists in here, and I appreciate that. Uh,
Well, we did have that one very angry guy at the very beginning.
yeah, at the very
Pretty.
beginning, that's Tyler. He comes in here and he trolls me. I don't think he's trolling. I don't think he's faking it. He is very on board. He's riding with Trump. He's on the Trump train 100%, and he gives me grief pretty regularly, and that's pretty fun. If you are watching, if you're paying attention, click the follow button, click the thumbs up, click the sub button, do all the fun things, and tell us what you're feeling and tell us what you're thinking. Um, let's see. Giga Gamer says my life was so exciting before I met you. That's true. I am incredibly boring, Giga Gamer. That's true. I will bring all the fun out of your life. I will take it all away. Uh, let's see. I think Steris Yig is talking about the class war, which is pretty cool. Upper class uses war as a distraction, and the first step is getting rid of supporting bullshit imperialist wars and using that money to help people at home. Politics is so polarized because people separate into camps like that thought for a lot of it. This and it's more than just voting; it's cultural and background based too. I can agree with that. And he's heard a lot of rhetoric, and this is what Chad is saying about Dem cities aren't part of real America, and Republicans have been using that a lot in more recent years. And I agree with him there. When I hear somebody on the right say Democrat cities aren't real America and shit like that, it makes me think of us versus them.
Well, who is saying that they aren't part of America or they aren't real America? What does that?
It's
What does real America
off
mean?
the top of my head, Sarah Palin. I know she's not important anymore, but she did talk about that. They don't know what it's like to be in real America. These Democrat cities aren't real Americans. We don't like being called flyover country. And that was her thing. She used the word real America quite often. MTG has been saying it. Old Maytag pushing that type of rhetoric really hard. I would agree. She doesn't think that those are Americans anymore.
I disavow
Yeah,
pretty
he
much everything.
Thomas disavows Maytag. We I try not to bring her up when he's around. When he's not around, I point at her pretty often. Uh, okay, hopping on to the next story. Let's look at the next one though. Going to the webcam screen. These conservative judges are agreeing with Waldo. Uh, and this is conservative judge sound alarm. Trump will shred our justice system. Now we don't have to stick on this one very long because I know you disagree with them, Thomas. But prominent conservative judges are warning that Trump is posing a threat like nothing in American history. And the New Republic is definitely a left-leaning situation. Definitely a left-leaning site for sure, absolutely, without a doubt. But what have they got? Let's see. From a former judge in the months ahead, the former president can only be expected to ramp up his unprecedented efforts to delegitimize the courts of the United States, the nation's state courts, and American system of justice through his vicious, disgraceful, and unforgivable acts and threats on the federal and state judiciaries and the individual judges in these courts, says uh, a
Attacks
judge.
and threats being all caps rants on True Social.
Yeah, sometimes the threats, yeah.
What were the threats?
He has talked shit about judges' families before, and he keeps breaking these gag rules because he calls them liars and criminals. He calls them fake judges. He calls for them to be gotten rid of, like these Democrat-leaning judges. But they're not. They're just judges. Uh, Republican-appointed federal district judge Reggie B. Walton felt compelled to announce that Trump's continued attacks could result in tyranny. Just hours later, former appeals court Judge J. Michael Luttig, also a conservative, issued his own warning cry, declaring that Trump is responsible for the dismantling of our nation's justice system.
What?
That's what they're saying. They're agreeing with me. That's why I brought it up. Let's see. Never in American history has any person, let alone a president of the United States, leveled such threatening attacks against our federal and state courts and federal and state judicial officers, and the kind of the former president has leveled continually now for years. Let's see if he's got. I think they just do the exciting claims. But if he's talking shit on True Social, yes, it's a thing that not that many people pay attention to, but these big time fans will pay attention to it.
Yeah, I mean, he's not very smart for antagonizing the judges that are ruling on his cases. But
Okay.
I definitely don't think that I've already said it's not even possible for him to properly dismantle the systems that we have in place through the Constitution. So
Well, he'll go around the
I don't
Constitution
know
to
if
do
you
so.
want to. I don't know if you want to rehash that
Okay.
one.
He'll go around the Constitution to do so. He will abandon it.
We'll see. I doubt it.
Okay. Let's see. What's next on the list? Here we go. I'm not going to put my hat on for this one, but super PACs for Trump and RFK Jr. share the same top donor. So the person who gives the most to Trump is also giving the most to RFK Jr. What do you think about that?
Didn't we talk about this one on a stream before?
Well, we weren't sure which side the old RFK Jr. was going to come down on. Is he stealing Trump votes from Biden voters so that Trump can win, or is he stealing votes from Trump so that Biden can win?
Oh, I have no idea. I haven't followed RFK at all.
Okay, I think that, and here's the claim I'm making, the absolute nonsense claim that I'm making, is that the person who's paying for RFK and Trump, being the same donor, is doing so that he can convince middle of the road people who don't want to vote for Joe Biden to vote for RFK Jr. instead. He's a spoiler so that Biden doesn't win. Getting that from chat too, because RFK pulls more Biden voters than Trump voters, and all the polls reflect that. It's a ploy to sandbag Biden. Yeah, that's the position I'm coming to as well. And that's why he's being funded by the same people who are funding Donald Trump.
So he's essentially doing the Ross Perot thing.
Well, Ross Perot was a special kind of lunatic who.
Or who am I thinking of?
Well, Ross Perot did run as a third party, and he got a lot of votes, but I think he took equally from both sides, honestly. And also, Ross Perot was also a lunatic, just like Ralph Nader, maybe, is who you're thinking of, or Jill Stein, as chat has pointed out. Jill Stein did siphon off quite a few Hillary voters, right?
Maybe. I don't remember.
Ralph Nader tends to be the Green Party guy, and so he pushes an environmental message. And if too many people vote for Ralph Nader, then the dam doesn't win, because it's not right-wing Republicans voting for Ralph Nader. They vote for libertarian third-party candidates, which is a whole different thing. So I'm suggesting that RFK Jr. is being paid, being funded by the same people as Trump so that he can steal a few Biden votes. So if Donald Trump wins, it might be because RFK Jr. snagged a few thousand Biden votes in swing states.
Yeah, I mean, it's a plausible election strategy.
Right, because elections are complicated and difficult and messy, and you can watch us watch them right here. Uh, let's see, what else? What other newsy things happened? Let's see. Okay, so this I wanted to talk about. This happened. Crystal Mason, Texas woman sentenced to 5 years over voting error, acquitted. In 2016, she was on parole and voted, which is not allowed. That is not legal. She cast an accidental illegal vote.
Okay.
The Texas Appeals Court has thrown out her 5 year prison sentence
Hmm.
because they said she's going to go to jail for 5 years. This, according to her, was an accident. She didn't realize it. She wasn't sure what the rules were. The vote didn't get counted because she registered on a provisional ballot or something like that, which registers you and votes at the same time. And those get looked at by the voting officials. Those officials looked at it, said, oh, this lady's not allowed to vote, did not count it. She still gets 5 year prison sentence. Uh, A judge convicted her in a 2018 trial that lasted just a few hours. Probation officials testified at her trial that they never told her that she was ineligible, so her, her actual probation officials didn't tell her she wasn't. But in 2020, the Court of Appeals on the Second Appellate District had said that the fact Mason did not know she was ineligible to vote was irrelevant to her prosecution. Um, I'm glad they've overturned it and she's not going to go to jail, but this is a 5 year, or maybe more than 5 years. She's been fighting with this shit. She didn't even vote. She
Well, now hold
tried.
on. She did not spend that 5 years in prison.
No, she didn't spend it in prison. She spent it in legal hell fighting against this thing at probably a very large amount of cost of her time, effort, and actual money.
Oh, certainly.
Okay, so she made a mistake, and she's being overly, I would suggest, punished for it because, and I'm going to say it, because Texas doesn't want Dem voters. They will make it as hard for the people to vote Dem as they can. If she voted Republican, they wouldn't have prosecuted her. I'm being entirely hypothetical, but I'm not afraid to say it. If she had voted for Republican, they wouldn't have prosecuted her.
Oh, bullshit.
Oh, I think that's absolutely true. I have a feeling, that's just my feeling, that if she had voted for Greg Abbott or who's this other guy, the attorney general who was trying to convict her really, really hard. Um, I think it's in here somewhere, but I've lost his name now. Sorry, I didn't have it up on screen. Uh, Mason, who, well, let's read more about her, who remained out
Oh,
of prison on the appeal bond, said that in a telephone interview on Thursday evening that she was received the news while going through. Yeah, I don't care about her receiving the news. Let's see. A key piece of evidence in the case was testimony from the head poll worker, Mason's neighbor, who assisted her with filling out the provisional ballot. Before submitting it, he said he went over the affidavit with her in which she had to affirm she was not serving a criminal sentence. The affidavit is poorly designed. It crams an admonition in both English and Spanish in relatively small print on the side. Okay. Let's see. After Mason was arrested, they arrested her for this. In 2017, she lost her job at a bank. She was also sent back to federal prison for several months after being arrested while on probation for a federal crime. During that time, she almost lost her home due to foreclosure. This is severely harmful for nothing. The vote didn't even get counted. I think the Texas Attorney General is trying really hard to make it really hard to vote blue. Ken Paxton,
yeah,
thank
I don't
you.
think so.
Thank you,
I
chat.
think that so she was on probation for a tax felony
Yes.
and attempted to vote ineligible for it.
Yes.
They picked her up. They said, "Hey, you just broke the law while also being on probation for a felony
Mm-hmm.
offense.
Mm-hmm.
That's what triggered the whole arrest and prosecution and whatnot. If it was just an ineligible vote for whatever reason, this would not have been as big of a thing. Now, does the punishment fit the crime here? I don't think so.
Okay.
So I will say that. But at the same time, the idea that this isn't a process that took place rather than, oh, we're gonna get you because you voted blue, I think that's ridiculous.
Oh, I
Um,
think that didn't. I mean, Republicans have been pretty hard on this whole voter fraud horseshit, right? Donald Trump ran an entire federal investigation into voter fraud, found nothing, but still talks about how Hillary had 4 million illegal votes. If you got him
yeah, I
on
don't think.
if you got him on camera today and said, "Did Hillary get 4 million illegal votes?" he would say yes.
Okay, I don't see how that's relevant to what I was saying though.
That's relevant to Republicans running horseshit to find illegal votes.
Well, but what you just suggested that because she voted for a Democrat, which you don't even know if
Yes,
that's true,
I don't know that's true. That's the feeling I have. That's why I said it was a
is
feeling.
because you think she voted for Democrat, they figured that out and then said, "Oh, you voted blue. We're going to prosecute you."
Yes, you vote blue, we'll
No,
prosecute you. That's their new tagline. Thomas, good job. I appreciate it. If you vote blue, we will prosecute you. That is what they want.
totally
That is what
ridiculous.
they
Totally
do. That is
ridiculous.
what they're calling for, and it's what they're going to move forward on. That's absolutely what's going to happen.
Absurd.
Absurd. Why does Donald Trump say that Hillary got 4 million illegal votes?
He's talking shit.
Then let's not hire people who talk shit. Let's abandon the entire party of people like him who talk shit. Ken Paxton is also a shit talker. This is part of his talking shit. He said there were lots of illegal votes. Somebody asked him, where'd all those illegal votes go? Well, there's no evidence. And then he went looking for evidence. And what he found was this woman who had accidentally voted illegally. And he needed to make an example. He's making an example. Maybe that's what. Maybe would you agree with that sentence? He's trying to make an example of her.
I don't think so.
I think that yeah, in chat they're not gonna come out and say it, but Texas is corrupt as hell, and I believe they targeted her because she was Dem and the AG was Republican. That's that's what I'm trying to suggest as well. That they intentionally and willingly did so. If she had voted for a Republican, if she had voted for Greg Abbott and Ken Paxton, they would have possibly complained about it, but like kept it down on the down low. They would have said, "Hey, you're not allowed to do that. Here's the minimum thing." And they would have, if they prosecuted her at all, which I don't think they would have, it would have been to the minimalist extent, and they wouldn't have talked about it.
They don't even. I bet you they don't even know who she voted for.
They have the ballot. The the person who did the thing took the ballot, and they know who it was. They know exactly who it was because they
Oh well, maybe if the ballot itself was entered into evidence, maybe.
right. Um, and while we're on the subject, Georgia Republican Party official voted illegally 9 times.
Hmm.
This is what I'm saying. Here is, I know this is a different state, but Brian Pritchard, first vice chairman of the Georgia Republican Party, was fined $5,000 for voting illegally and registered to vote while serving a sentence for a felony. He did the exact same thing 9 times, and those 4 votes were counted. That's not, hey, it got stopped at the provisional level and not counted. Those 9 votes got counted. And so he's done so much worse, yet he is a Republican and faces a $5,000 fine. A judge ruled this week that a Georgia Republican Party official, he's a party official, like he's a part of the group. He is a politician. He's a politician. He promoted former President Donald Trump's claim of widespread voter fraud affecting the outcomes of the 2020 presidential election and has repeatedly voted illegally. He was on a Republican talk show. He was fined $5,000 for voting illegally, registering to vote while serving as a sentence for a felony conviction. He was also ordered not to commit further violations, to face public reprimand for his conduct. Yep. And he was initially sentenced in 1996 to 3 years probation. This is just the times in which he did the thing. An attorney for Pritchard and the Georgia Republican Party didn't immediately respond for requests to comment. I think the important bit is down here. Pritchard has also cast doubt on President Joe Biden's legitimacy, winning the 2020 presidential election, saying that on an episode of his talk show in 2020, while gesturing at a button on his microphone, the button says stolen. This is what they did to us because I don't believe 81 million people voted for Joe Biden.
Oof. Didn't age so well.
Right. This is so.
Well, look, I mean, I think that his crime deserves more punishment than what it got. I think the lady's crime deserves less punishment than what it got, and it was in. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say.
This is what the people are complaining about when they say that there's a two-tier justice system. When BLM says that they're treated differently under the law, this is the kind of thing they're talking about. Accidentally voting incorrectly gets you 5 years. Okay, let me start over. Black poor person accidentally votes incorrectly, gets 5 years. Rich white person intentionally votes 9 times, they get a fine. Two-tier justice system. That's what they're talking about. This is what they complain about. This is why there are riots in the streets over the way that our justice system works. They are suggesting to you that they are treated more harshly.
Well, I wouldn't even call this a two-tier justice system. I would call it a two-state justice system. The judge and whatnot in one state decided on a punishment for this guy, and a judge in a different state decided on a punishment for this lady.
Right.
And now I don't agree with either punishment. One is too harsh, one is not harsh enough.
It's not a perfect one-to-one, but they both did the thing, and the person of color and the Democrat gets punished more harshly.
I don't think that it's. First of all, this is such a rare occurrence, at least according to everybody, that yeah, there was maybe a miscarriage of justice in both instances. But I'm not drawing a line here between these 2 points.
Why?
Because they're in 2 different states.
They seem shockingly similar.
Sure.
Okay, then that's what I'm doing. Poor black lady accidentally votes illegally. She gets 5 years. Rich white guy votes illegally 9 times. He gets $5,000 fine.
Okay. Well, then the lady should maybe sue the state of Texas for pain and suffering caused.
Hang on, we got another ad. This is complicated.
Because she won in the end, right? Do you think maybe she's entitled to reimbursement from the state of Texas? Because I do.
Do you think she'll get it? I don't think she will. No, I don't think she will because she's already a felon. She's already on the criminal rolls. She's already been determined by the state to be unworthy, a ne'er-do-well. You know, she's going to have to face that felony conviction for the rest of her life, and I think that's fine. That's acceptable. She did a crime, but they're not going to look at her in the way they do anybody else, and she won't get any of the stuff back. I doubt she'll get any of it back.
I mean, it happens all the time that people get improperly convicted of something, and have things happen to them as a result. Maybe they get put in prison and whatnot, and it's improper, and then they get compensated by the state after the
Well,
fact.
I mean, she did vote illegally, but the focus of the state is they're overly zealous in chasing her down because they want to prove a point. And I don't think that's the way the government ought to operate. I think this is exactly the thing that I have been telling you. I know I'm connecting this back to Trump, but this is the thing that a Republican-led federal government will do. It will chase after the people it doesn't like, who are doing the things politically that they don't like, and they will over exaggerate the harm that those people do while under exaggerating the harm that their people do.
You know, it'd be really cool though
Why?
if the federal government didn't have the power to do that in either direction.
Then it wouldn't have the power to do anything. It is above the states, and then and then it wouldn't be able to stop the state of Texas from doing this in the future, possibly. The federal government isn't involved in this state case or the Georgia or the Texas case, either one. But
Correct.
I wouldn't want them to do exactly the same thing, which I think the a Trump-led DOJ would do exactly that. I think these two situations are exactly how a Trump DOJ will operate. That's what I'm suggesting to you. Maybe that's the point I'm trying to get to. This is how the Trump DOJ will operate. Poor black people do it by accident, 5 years. Rich white people do it 9 times, $5,000 fine. That is the future.
I think that that's not a thing that's going to happen.
You think I'm
I can't.
exaggerating,
I mean,
and it's entirely possible. I am predicting and exaggerating, but I think that is the direction that it will go. Trump DOJ is an oxymoron. Kissing Gonzo, we need to stop considering Trump as an effective or useful leader. Okay, I'm uh, Kissing Gonzo. I don't know which direction you're going with that, but I don't think he's effective. Thomas doesn't even think he's effective. He talks a lot of things and he says a lot of things that just never get done, or he promises things that can't be done. Let's see. And that is the thing that you're right, Thomas. I can hear you thinking it. Waldo's just exaggerating, and it's true. I am exaggerating. I am going worst case scenario. I do look at the news and then see a thing that confirms my prior beliefs, and then bring it up to the stream and bring it to you. I do. I did that. I did it twice today. Um, there was a thing, voter fraud, that is worse for this person but better for this other person, and that is what I think Trump will do. So I'm bringing it to you as almost slightly as an example of what I am worried is going to happen. I'm not trying to gotcha on that kind of thing and demand that you square this circle. My intent was to show an example of what I think is going to happen. Let's see. What else we got? We got Trump posts video of an image with a hogtied Biden drawing a rebuke from Democrats' campaign. I haven't seen the actual video, but I think it's in the next tab. All right. Want to watch a Trump video? That video that he posted. Let's see. It's only 20 seconds long. Let's see. We don't need the audio. I can turn that off. All right, there it is. That's it. That's the thing. He's been hogtied in the back of this truck.
and people are upset over this stupidity.
Yeah, they're upset that he shared it and posted it and pushed it. himself. You know, the fact that he would re-truth that. Um, it's not the nightmare that this headline would suggest. I think this headline is grasping a bit. Trump posts a video with an image of a hogtied Biden, drawing rebuke from Democrats' campaign.
You
He's
might
not.
not have even seen that
He
on the
might
back of
not have
the
even
truck.
seen it. He's just posting the trucks,
Posting the trucks with the
posting
flags
the
all over them.
flags with the blue line. This one's a little excited. They're looking for problems. They're cherry picking themselves. Yes, he voted. He pushed it. I'm not super worried about this one. So, just so everybody knows, if you hear hog tie in the headlines of the next couple of days, this is what it's talking about. This is what it's suggesting. This is what it's pointing at. And we saw that little uh, sticker there. Yeah, I don't think this is the back of it. And Trump retweeted that violent image.
Yeah,
Well,
this is silly. I don't
well,
feel the need to discuss it any further,
okay,
honestly.
great, that's fine. I clicked on it because I wanted to see because they were promising, hey, Trump retweeted this violent image uh, of Joe Biden hogtied and beaten up, and I wanted to see what it was. And it's not quite as bad as the headline would suggest it is. So, what's happening in chat? What do we got? Trump's rhetoric is wartime rhetoric, not politics. It's blown. I could agree with that. He does often talk wartime rhetoric and stuff like that. Um, what kind of bullshit dually is that with all those flags? Somebody needs a traffic ticket. Uh, um, don't you know, Kissing Gonzo? That truck was just the working class prole, the working poor. Uh, Sad thing is, if someone put a gun to my head and forced me to vote, as a leftist as I am, I would vote for Trump because of the Ukraine issue. Trump isn't going to cause a global nuclear winter, and Biden is pushing it on us. Oh, I disagree entirely right there. At least with Trump, we can figure out how to get rid of him later as soon as possible, as opposed to radiation going everywhere and killing most of the life on Earth. That's yeah, I can't follow you there, boss. Um, so Thomas, we got. Do you want to watch a?
That's quite the change in attitude towards Trump from the left. I
I
remember
know.
back in
Yeah.
2015, all the rhetoric was, "We can't give this man the nuclear button. He's he's gonna bring us all to global nuclear annihilation."
Oh, I still agree with that. I think he is more likely to cause the nuclear war. Um, I've said it before, but there's some new people in the chat, so I might mention it. I think there's only really three options. One is kind of everything stays the same as it is. I'm not on board for that. But then if the two changes in the future could go from Mad Max or Star Trek. Those are our two options, and I try and aim towards Star Trek. Which one's going to get us to Star Trek, and which one's going to get us to Mad Max? And I really think Donald Trump is more likely to get us to Mad Max than Biden is, and more likely to get us towards Mad Max than Hillary was. Do you subscribe to my Mad Max Star Trek theory?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Maybe, but I don't know if we'll achieve either of those. Certainly not in our lifetime.
I mean, Mad Max
Um,
is the collapse, the societal collapse, right?
sure, but societies have collapsed before without turning into a complete dystopia. Usually, a new society rises from it.
Right, but I
Um,
don't want to do that bad part. I don't want to be in that collapse. I would
all
lose
right,
access to the internet.
I
I
don't
would.
either.
An awful
And
lot
I
of people
mean,
would die.
I think we're kind of in our zombie stage as empires go, honestly. But the Roman Empire continued on in its zombie stage for like another 700 years, so
Right,
that'd be
and
cool.
yeah,
The uh, the Star Trek thing, unfortunately, I think is not a possibility within our lifetimes.
oh,
Uh,
I don't think so either.
that's going to require faster than light travel and all sorts of things that we haven't figured out. Um, and I don't think we will figure out for quite some time. So,
Right. And
uh,
the point I'm getting to is Immortan Joe doesn't invent faster than light travel. He doesn't. He hits people with his car until they do what he wants, and he steals from the poor, and he's literally chaos all day, every day, anarchy, and I want to avoid that. If we're gonna get
who did you? What?
Immortan Joe,
Who?
sorry, Immortan Joe, he's the bad guy from Mad Max. He's that very pale guy with the mask on, and
Okay,
he has the mask, and he's the dad of all the people, and he's very spooky
gotcha,
looking guy.
gotcha.
That guy is a warlord, you know. Which of the two choices for president? I know there are a lot more to the government than just those two people, but Joe Biden or Trump, I think Trump is more likely
Oh, that's
to
totally
get us toward
false, ridiculous
warlords.
dichotomy.
It could be another 100 years off, but he's more likely to get us towards warlords than he is towards Star Trek.
I don't think he has that amount of ability to do that in either direction.
He
I don't think
can't.
Biden does either.
Of course they do. They could do a bad job. They could uh, push the direction of the country. They could push. They could ruin an economy. Apparently, if you ask a Trump voter, Biden himself ruined the entire economy, and billions of people are coming across the southern border, and they're all ruining our economy, and everybody's going to be inflated until they die. Like they believe it that the fall is coming.
You're lagging out on me.
Oh, sorry. Okay, we'll give it a moment.
I don't know if it's me or you. Let me close some tabs.
Okay.
Say that again.
Okay. So if you ask a typical regular person, they don't know. We're not talking about normies here. Normies don't pay attention to politics. The fact that anybody's in this politics chat means you're not normal. Welcome to the club, but it's true. Normies don't have strong feeling one way or the other. But the people on the far left and the people on the far right do have opinions. And I would suggest that the people on the far right who are absolute Trump fans, that guy who was chatting at the very beginning, he's in the chat, and I get messages on YouTube all the time about how Joe Biden caused the Ukraine war, he caused the Afghanistan failure, he caused inflation, he caused the gas prices to go up, and he caused what was that other thing? Something else, and he caused the border crisis, and he caused all of these things, and we are all going to die and suffer because of it.
Well, his policies did contribute to a number of those things, but to say he single-handedly caused them is certainly not accurate.
Okay.
I mean, for example, gas prices to go up. Well, what kind of things can cause gas prices to go up? Mostly it's about supply and demand for both the oil market and the gasoline and other refined materials markets, right? So if you have policies where you are rejecting new builds in the oil fields and whatnot, new rigs to be established, that's going to hurt the supply of oil. If you pass laws that make refining more difficult or make the transport of those goods more difficult, such as canceling pipelines, well, that is going to have an impact on your oil and gas prices.
Sure.
So, yes, his policies can have an impact on those things. They're also a global market. So, for example, continuing with the oil example, the sanctions that we have on Russia and on Iran definitely increase oil prices. And then you have OPEC, who is still also a player, and they're doing voluntary production cuts to keep supply just below the level of demand so that oil prices remain high. Now, if we were to be more pro energy industry here in the United States, you could actually put more pressure on those countries over there, like Russia and like OPEC, You would either force them to continue to further cut production to keep prices high, or prices would start coming down. And so I know that you don't want low oil prices, and that's fine, but other people do. Other people like having, to only pay $2 at the pump rather than having to pay 5 or 4.
Okay. And what if I suggested that was because those people want more money? Those companies want more money.
I think that gas prices are something that your average everyday citizen votes on a lot of the time.
Well, that's because they're normies and they don't know the difference. I've got family members that literally just kind of think that there's some knob in the Oval Office that Trump turns down because he loves them and Biden turns up because he hates them.
Well, no,
Like,
but I'm
that's
saying
the
that
way they see it. It's far more
policies have an
complicated.
impact.
It's far
It
more
is far more
complicated. It's
complicated,
way more
but the
complicated.
policies of the administration do have an impact.
Right, and
They don't have the sole impact. The Biden administration doesn't
it's
have
not a
sole
knob.
authority over.
Okay.
Right, but the policies in general can cause prices to, or do have an impact. They have an influence on prices going up or going down.
Okay, and that's capitalism that's making those choices. The capitalists, the people who want to make as much money as possible, set that as high as they can get away with. And sometimes there's that, and sometimes that has to be balanced against the government has to come out and have regulations about those things.
What? Hold on. I'm talking about the people
Mm-hmm.
who buy gasoline at the pump.
Mm-hmm.
They like it better when they're lower prices.
Okay. And if the government could give them those lower prices, they would be happy with that, wouldn't they?
Yes,
Okay.
and it's the policies the government sets that have an influence
Okay.
on those prices.
It's
not a
not the
knob.
companies that are setting those
It's
prices that have an influence on those prices?
what? No, it's
No,
a
the
global
companies
market.
don't set those prices. No, they've got nothing to do with that. Boss, you're
It's a global
pushing
market.
capitalist propaganda. You're pushing capitalist propaganda at me right now, Thomas. The companies set those prices so that they profit,
Okay.
but nobody complains about that. Nobody talks about that. Nobody thinks about that because then you're a filthy fucking socialist who complains about
A global market sets those prices, actually,
and who makes
and
up that
also
global market? Those
the cost of
companies.
delivering and producing the goods
And they're
set those prices.
and are they a giant, wildly profitable company?
Only in times when supply is lower than demand.
They're one of the biggest, most profitable companies ever. Oil companies make fuck tons of money.
Right now,
They always have. Why
what
would anybody
did
else get
they
into that business if they weren't planning to
did
make
they
fuck
make
tons of
fuck
money?
tons of money? Did they make fuck tons of money when COVID hit and the oil prices went to -40 a barrel?
They made fuck
No,
tons
they
of
did
money.
not.
They
They
made fuck
lost a
tons
fuck ton of
for
money.
decades. They made fuck tons. And then for
Hmm
1 year, they had a dip in the thing, and they screamed bloody murder about it, I'm sure. And they tried to get the government to cover those losses, I'm sure. And then they got back to making fuck tons of money. It's
Actually, see, there was a time when the United States went through a massive increase in oil production,
hmm
which actually caused oil prices to come way, way down. And that was when we invented fracking. And
and
when we invented fracking, our oil production more than doubled, which threw the
okay.
entire world oil economy out of balance, and prices went down to $30 to $40 a barrel.
And were the
And oil
companies upset by
companies,
that?
what's that?
Were the oil companies upset with that?
Well, of course they were upset, but
Okay.
they did not. That didn't cause them to stop producing. What it did was oil companies that couldn't sustain those prices, ones where it costs those companies $60 to produce a single barrel of oil, and then another however many dollars to actually transport it to where it's going. Those companies could not sustain prices at $40, and they ended up having to shut down because they were losing fuck tons of money.
Okay.
So I don't understand what your argument here is. If you're not mad at it when the prices are really low and then companies have to shut down, but you are mad at it when prices are really high and companies are making a lot of money.
I'm mad at it
Why?
because, well, okay, it's really high and they're making fuckloads of money because they set the price really high so that they can make fuckloads of money.
No,
Yes,
they don't set the price really high.
they
The
do.
price is what it is because A, it's
Oh,
expensive to pull this stuff out, and B, because why would you sell to the guy that's only going to pay you $4 for whatever when you could have someone pay you $8 for it somewhere else? What offer are you taking?
right. So this is a capitalism problem. This is a So when people are upset about those high prices, they should be upset with the capitalists, not the government. But they're not. They're upset with the government because they're dumb, because they've been tricked by capitalists to say that capitalists never do anything wrong and they don't set the prices. It's just some invisible hand of a market. Nothing you can do about that. Nobody could possibly know what that's going to do. They're lying. They're
Guess
setting the
what?
prices. They're
If
controlling the market. The market
uh-uh,
is made of companies, of people. And they're
if
doing what they can to make
those
as much money as possible.
so there is such a thing as a balance for a company where if you can produce more, it will make you more money at a lower price than if you can produce less and then charge a higher price for it. Even if those companies were to make more money, prices could come down if they were allowed to produce more of these goods.
Those prices would come
And
down
then
if they produce more.
everybody's
Sure.
happy
Well, then
because there's more production and there's lower prices, right? The company might even make more money
you just said that there
and
was a crisis when we had too much production.
yeah, there was because the prices went below the price point at which the oil could be produced.
Okay, so if there's too much, that's a problem. If there's too little, that's a problem.
Yeah,
And
it's a pretty
both of
delicate
those,
balance.
it's a balance. I agree. Balance is a nice thing. But I have a feeling, and this is what I get from talking to people in reality, and when I speak to people, they always blame that imbalance on the government. They
It's
never
because
blame that imbalance on the markets or the companies, which is where I
right.
think the blame ought to be.
Well, because so in an oil field, there's extreme diminishing returns on after the first couple of years of the development of a rig. So at
Sure.
first, the oil is free flowing. It's really easy to get. It gets more and more difficult over time as that well starts to dry up. You get much diminishing returns. Now, if you're the government, you have two options because these companies want to build more rigs. You can allow them to build more rigs to keep the production up and perhaps to even increase production, or you can tell them, no, we're not allowing any permits for building these rigs. We don't like you. Then the rigs don't get built, the production doesn't get replaced, or the growth slows substantially.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what helps influence higher prices as the supply is naturally coming down from existing rigs and new ones are not being allowed to be built. That's why the Biden administration is being blamed essentially for higher prices. Even though it's a global market, it's not all U.S. production, it's not all Biden's fault. But yes, his administration is directly detrimental to oil in terms of making the prices go up. It makes his administration policies that he enacts do help to make prices go up.
Okay. I'm not going to argue with that bit. I think that it is correct to say, and I would agree with you, his policies do make that price go up.
Okay. And Trump's
And
policies make the prices go down.
okay, I
Somewhat. They influence it. They're
somewhat,
not solely responsible.
not solely
They
responsible.
somewhat bring them down.
Okay.
And that's been the way it is. And so when your family members that scream about,
the magic
the
knob
Democrats, the
in the
magic
Oval
knob,
Office, in the
right?
Oval
Well,
Office, yeah.
they might not have this level of understanding of how the oil market actually works. But what they do see is whenever there's a Republican in office and they go to the pumps, they're paying $2.50 a gallon, and whenever there's a Democrat in office and they go to the pump, they're paying $4 a gallon. And that is where the idea of this magic knob comes from.
Right. Okay. So we just need to educate them, but they're normies, so they don't watch political streamers.
I mean, even if you educated them, I feel like I know a decent amount on this topic, and I'm going to vote Republican because I want the policies that make my gas prices go down somewhat.
Okay, because there's okay.
And I did see earlier, somebody did mention that they'd rather have lower home and food prices and whatnot,
And raised gas, yeah.
and raised gas, but
Mhm.
actually having lower gas lowers those prices as well. Most of your goods are made out of plastic, which is a derivative of the oil market. Um, so if plastics become cheaper, then those goods also become cheaper, generally speaking. Um, and then there's also, of course, the cost of transporting those goods, which is going to be directly relevant or directly impacted by the price of either diesel or gasoline or other fuels that are used to transport those goods. Lower price of oil products also reduces the value of corn and other items that are used to create ethanol, which means that your beef products or dairy industry products also go down. Anything that's fed with anything that could otherwise be used to create ethanol, those prices go down. Generally speaking, lower oil prices and lower derivative prices are pretty good for us economically.
Okay, I hope. I mean, you're spitting a lot of capitalism at me. I'm inherently distrustful of it. That's just my typical position. Um, I'm worried that it wouldn't actually go down because they would just keep the profit. If you can afford the $8 rather than the $4, then why would you lower your price down to $4?
But someone else who is in competition
Is
with
selling it
you
for 7?
is selling it for 7, and now you got to sell it for 650, and now they got to sell it for 550 until someone reaches a point where they're not willing to go any lower.
Okay, I hope. All right, how dare you sell me on capitalism? Okay, yeah, if capitalism works properly, that's the way it goes. I have a funny feeling it won't. I'm inherently distrustful of it. I'm immediately distrustful of it because I don't think that it will. But okay, you're not saying anything wrong here, and I appreciate it. What are we doing? Chat's having a whole thing about um, who's a Nazi and who isn't in Ukraine. That's cool. Thanks for jumping in, guys. I appreciate it. I linked the Discord. If you want to go there, you can talk about it there as well. If you're watching, if you're paying attention, press the follow button, press the subscribe button, press the thumbs up. Kissing Gonzo also mistrusts government and corporations too, but not too far. Um, how would you like to watch a Vivek video, Thomas?
Oh boy, hit me with it. Let's make this the last thing on our stream.
Yeah, it's the last thing for
today.
today. We're going to watch The Great Uprising with Vivek. I'm going to put my hat on. Hang on. All right, I got my hat on. I am ready to roll with The Great Uprising. I haven't watched this. I don't know what it is. It's
Hold on,
a few days
I don't
old.
have this link in my.
Okay. It was one of the ones I came to later. Um, how about, do you want to watch it with me or do you just want to watch it on the stream? It's only 4 minutes long. We can discuss it.
Yeah, just remember I'll be a few seconds behind on the stream,
Gotcha. Okay. Um,
and I'm probably have to turn your main thing down on
tell me when
Discord.
you're ready.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, here we go, folks. Vivek Ramaswamy.
The Great Reset is a vision from the World Economic Forum in Davos that calls for dissolving the boundaries between the public sector and the private sector, dissolving the boundaries between nations, dissolving the boundary even between the online world and the offline world to work together towards the singular global common good as articulated by the likes of Klaus Schwab. What we're seeing in Western democracies around the world is a rising, an uprising. I'd call it, yes, in a good way, a populist uprising of everyday citizens who say hell no to that vision. I'm not some vague, nebulous global citizen fighting climate change somewhere. I'm a citizen of this nation, in our case, the United States of America, and I'm proud of that, and that citizenship means something. That's what I call the Great Uprising. But for the great uprising to actually succeed, we have to stand for something, for an alternative vision. What is that vision? It is sovereignty. That's the opposite of the Great Reset. We've been searching for what it is. What does it mean to be the opposite or in opposition to the Great Reset? It means we are sovereign at the level of the individual, the family, the nation, and God. Individual, family, nation, God, that beats race, gender, sexuality, and climate. If we have the courage to actually stand for something, for our vision of what it means to be sovereign as an individual, that I am an agent, free to achieve what I want with my own free will, not riding some fake tectonic plate of group identity. My membership in a family, the ultimate unit of governance, the best known form of governance to mankind in our country or any other one. That I'm a citizen of a nation, and that means something, that national identity is part of my identity, that the nation state grounds me, and I'm not going to apologize for my pride in it. And my belief that we are one nation under God, that God doesn't have to be some four-letter word or treated as such, but that we are part of something bigger than ourselves, that there is a God that puts us here for a purpose, and that gives us our sense of direction in this world. That's the opposite of the Great Reset. Particularly, let's talk about that topic of national identity. We've fallen into this trap of believing that there are globalists who want to make the world a better place.
Globalists.
And there are those of us, I call myself one of them, nationalists, who believe that it's the job of leaders to look after the interests of our own nation. And we've almost ceded the argument to the other side by saying that they're arguing for how to make the world a better place, while we're just here talking about how to make our nation better. Well, I think that's the wrong framing of the argument. It's not the fact that the people who want to make the world a better place are going to be successful at doing it. The way we make the world a better place is for leaders of each nation to make their nation the best version of itself. That's the true positive nationalist vision, is what it means to be sovereign at the level of the individual, the family, the nation, and a nation under God. That's how we ground what I see as a multinational conservative movement of everyday citizens of those nations stepping up to say, you know what, here's how we're going to help each other and help the world, is each of our nations to be the best version of ourselves. For me, that's right here in the United States. But if that's Giorgia Meloni in Italy, or Viktor Orban in Hungary, or whether it's Bukele in El Salvador, or any other leader in any other country who says that, you know what, my job is to make sure my nation and the citizens of my nation are best off, that is how you make the world a better place. And that's the alternative vision to the Great Reset. And it's up to us as conservatives, as citizens of actual nations, to step up and stand for that vision rather than just getting worked up over what the other side puts up on offer. We have to offer that alternative vision of our own. And in Western democracies around the world, I think that starts with sovereignty.
Okay. Thomas, you back with me?
All right. I just finished it.
Yeah, you back with me? Okay, sorry, folks.
Yeah.
We're not smart enough to do that very well. I'm not smart enough anyway. I hated every minute of that. Well, what did you think?
I mean, I won't lie. He kind of lost me at the very beginning with the Great Reset stuff. I don't buy into that.
It's
theory.
definitely a tinfoil theory, so I got my hat on. He mentioned Davos.
I mean,
Davos,
I thought there was some decent stuff in there. I mean, the whole idea of the nations governing themselves and going away from the globalism idea.
What do you think about that?
Well, it's just an extrapolation on my earlier discussion on my earlier arguments, I guess, on why our states should have more rights as opposed to the federal government dictating things. So, yeah, I tend to agree with, yes, nations should be governing themselves.
Is it going to surprise you that I would go the exact opposite direction?
Not at all.
Okay, because that leads to war. That leads to hard-drawn boundaries. And if it's best if the thing that's best for France is bombing the fuck out of Spain, then that's what France ought to do. That's what I think it leads to.
But that's so often not what's best for France.
But if it is, Vivek says go for it. That's what I think. And he says he thinks this leads to world peace, and I think it leads to balkanization. And just like you and I talked about at the beginning of the stream, it leads to the opposite, I think, of unity. It leads to hard borders, hard fences, fuck the other guys, my nation first, America first, France first, Spain first. And if Spain is standing in the way of your America first, you stomp the shit out of them. You do whatever you can to get rid of them. You do whatever you can to make your team come in first.
I think that is not a realistic view of that situation. I mean, a lot of times countries find it more advantageous to use diplomacy anyway, but that doesn't mean that you have to form a government, a joint government with another country to do that.
I would, yeah, you don't have, yeah, we don't have to be one government. I'm not saying that Spain and France ought to become one government, but if you are taking Vivek's ideas seriously, you have to say, I'm Spanish, I live in Spain, I'm a part of the Spanish government, and my only goal, my number one goal, is to benefit the people of Spain.
Okay.
And if that means depriving the people of France, then that's what I'll do.
In what ways would that mean depriving the people of France?
It doesn't matter if there's a trade deal, if there's a pipeline to be built, if there's a border dispute, if there's a immigration kind of thing, just any federal law, honestly. If Spain has a federal law that would direct immigrants to France instead of Spain, and they think that that benefits them, then that's what they'll do. I can't get behind that idea. That sounds like a bad idea. That sounds like the opposite of world peace. It sounds like world competition.
Well, that sounds like an inherently aggressive act.
But it's
I mean,
beneficial.
if Spain were to implement such a law, it
Uh-huh.
might be you can't stay here,
Uh-huh.
and that could be the end of it, where Spain just refuses to accept immigrants. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to direct those immigrants to France.
But if that's the thing that gets them the most benefit, then they will, according to Vivek's ideology here. I think his ideology has a giant flaw, and that is competition tends to harm other people. Somebody loses in a competition.
I don't think this is a necessarily even true, actually.
What, that some people lose in a competition?
I think, no, the idea that competition is a bad thing.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it is a bad thing. It's not bad for high school kids to run track. I'm saying it's bad for global thermonuclear politics.
Maybe. I mean, but on the other hand, we did have a competition with Russia back in the 70s, and it put us on the moon.
And it was horrible. It was a huge waste of fucking resources. We could have done so much more important things with all that, those time, those lives, those money, and the fucking resources. But instead, we were forcing a competition where none needed to exist.
Most of our
Wasted
technological advancements came from competitive advancements, actually.
The war.
The vast majority of our advancement do that,
Right.
or
And
are a result of that.
so follow me here. So when you make that point, and it is a good point that you're making.
And I'm not saying that we should be at war all the time, but what I am saying is that competition on its face is not necessarily a bad thing.
Competition creates losers. I mean, it's the first thing it does. It's the main thing that it does is it creates winners and losers. That's what competition does. There's nothing else it does. That's like the first principle of competition. Who is first, who is second, who is third, who is last. That is what competition is in its essence, I suppose. And when you're doing that on a large scale, people suffer. And so, yeah, that was the war that Cold War did lead to innovation, why were we funneling resources to do those innovations so that we wouldn't die? You need this spy thing to work, or else Russia's going to win, and then we're all going to die. You need this bomb to work properly, or else Russia's going to win, and we're going to die. I think that is a very good motivating factor. I just wish it were more based on things that are not a competition. If we don't solve climate change, we're all going to die. But there's a lot of people who don't want to spend any money on fixing it. There's a lot of people who deny that it even exists. And this is just, and I'm quite sure that Vivek himself has called climate change a Chinese hoax. Yet it could, under competition, we could like put resources towards figuring out how to fix it, how to undo it, but he would be against those things.
Maybe. I don't think so, though. I mean, there are things that could be done about climate change that don't necessarily involve, a me versus you situation.
I can agree to that. Yeah, there are things that we could do. How are they going to get done? There's only two options on how to get it done: inefficiently with the government, or for profit with the corporation. Those are the only two choices we have. And if there's no money to be made in it, as usually there isn't, it's actually a loss of money. I mean, most of the pro-business people are really against climate change. It's the people who are coming out against climate change and saying it's a hoax are usually because they don't want to lose money. So it's not going to be that side. So it has to be ineffective government. That's the only option left. And Vivek is against that. He is not on board for the government making regulations to prevent this thing that's going to kill us. He'll simply say that it doesn't exist, or ignore it, or point to a specific science bit that agrees with him. But I have gotten a little bit off topic, haven't I? What else did he say? He said populist. I don't think Vivek's a populist. I think he's a fake populist. He cares only about the market. He cares only about money. And if fleecing poor people got him more money, he would do it, I think. He doesn't care. And yeah, global warming. Yeah. Why was I aiming towards that? He said he doesn't want to work with the world to prevent global warming. He wants to work just with the U.S.
Ooh, I don't think that's what he said.
That's what he said. He said, I'm a U.S. citizen, not a global citizen fighting against global warming or against global climate change. I'm a U.S. citizen. I got nothing to do with this whole globe thing. That's the energy that I was getting from him. That's what I took away from
it. I think that we could be using some diplomacy to get some climate change solutions going. Yes, okay. Which we do. Now, what that diplomacy looks like, it's may be different from what we have currently, which is we're imposing like emission standards on different countries based on whatever basis they do it on. I don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
It's when another country or group of countries is dictating laws for your countries, or for an individual country. That's I think what he was getting at in terms of the globalism perspective.
Well, he wants America to dictate to all the other second, third, and fourth, fifth place contenders. When he talks sovereignty, he's talking about his own sovereignty, because he's a nation. He's a nationalist. He only cares about America. He wants America first, and he said it several times. And if America's first, who's doing the dictating of those to those other countries? America is.
Maybe. I don't think so. But I mean, if you say America first and then also these other countries should be my country first, then yes, I mean, America should take care of American citizens first.
Okay. And if that means depriving other people or telling them what to do or using our leverage to force their other governments into following our rules and our laws and the things that benefit us the most, is that just normal competition? That's just a Tuesday, right?
Maybe, yeah. I mean,
Okay, that's
I,
imperialism. That's what it is. He's a nationalist and an imperialist. Vivekis. If he weren't in America, if he were number 2, he'd be pushing really hard against whoever's number 1. But because he's in the number 1 position, he's suggesting that everyone else does what the number 1 person says. That's what I get from him. America's number 1. I'm American. Everybody else do what we tell you. If he were in number 2, he'd be screaming bloody murder about the person who's in number 1 and how we ought not pay attention to him, we ought not listen to him, we ought not do what they say.
only if that ends up being something that's detrimental to the number 2 country.
It will always be detrimental to the number 2 country, boss. It always will be. Because once you're in the lead, you use your power and authority to stay in the lead. That's diplomacy. As shitty as it sounds, I like diplomacy, but we only have it if you have leverage, authority, power, money, something to trade.
Well, of course, something to trade. Well, so, hey, we will do this in return for you doing this. That is diplomacy, yes.
Okay. And this is a thing that we need to work past. We need to get above. We need to recognize that the competition of the past is the past. Come together in a union, maybe. Some sort of
Well, what I was saying is
working towards a better goal for tomorrow.
what
But we can't do
what I
that
was
if
saying is that diplomacy it is possible for diplomacy to be mutually beneficial, right?
it's possible for it to be beneficial. Yes. Mutually
For
beneficial, sure.
both
Okay.
countries
Yes,
involved,
it could be.
right?
And if it's not, why wouldn't it be?
What do you mean? Why wouldn't it be? If it's the whole point of diplomacy is to make mutually beneficial decisions, right?
Well, you can still have unequal diplomacy, right?
Maybe you can, yeah.
You can.
But
If America says to, I don't know, find a very tiny country, Estonia, hey, here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we expect of you, and America benefits from it, and America gets this much benefit, and Estonia has this much pain, but a little bit of benefit too. They would do so because we're larger and have more leverage and power over them, right? They will follow our lead if we almost force them to through diplomacy.
that's a great way to make enemies, though, isn't it? I mean, what if you told them, "Hey, we'd like you to do this, and if you do it, we'll give you this."
Right, that's a great way to make enemies. That's what Vivek is pushing for. A
I don't
great way
know.
to make enemies.
The part where we say we'll give you this in return is the diplomatic part, right? As
Mhm.
opposed to, "Hey, you're gonna do this, and if you don't, we're gonna bomb you." That's totally different.
Right. And I think that's what Vivek is pushing towards.
I don't think that's what he's pushing towards.
It's a competition, and if once you're in the lead, you hold down the rest of the competition. And if they get upset about you holding them down, they just need to compete harder. That's what I'm getting from him. I'm getting war from him. This is why I don't like this balkanization idea. This is why I don't like this granularness that you keep describing, because I think it leads towards tribalism, individual identity of group identity that are separate from all the other groups, and that tribalism leads to violence, war, and disagreement.
No, the disagreement exists either way. The problem is when you force one group through federal laws, like we were discussing,
Mm-hmm.
to follow the rules that another group wants.
That's that bad diplomacy that I was talking about. The country
Yeah,
of Estonia doesn't want
the
to follow
federal
these.
government
It
and
would be better
the
for the
globalist idea. It sounds a lot like really bad diplomacy.
no, the country of Estonia would make more money if they disregarded America's global climate change initiatives. And according to Vivek's idea, they ought to ignore America's climate change initiatives so that they can do the best they can for their people and make more money and make better people and have better for their little group. Their tiny little group would benefit more from ignoring the United States climate initiatives than by following them. So, according to Vivek, they should ignore them.
Okay, and perhaps they should.
Then what happens when they ignore them? We start cutting off funds. We start cutting off trade with them. We start cutting off diplomatic ties. We stop inviting them to things. What happens when that happens? They get more isolated. They get more separate. They start reaching out to other people who are not our friends. Drawing borders makes distinctions. Those distinctions lead to disagreements. Those disagreements lead to actions that, and then those actions will lead to war. And I think one, your idea of balkanization, and I honestly think that Vivek was talking balkanization there, leads to competition, which then leads to holding people down, which then leads to violence.
No, I think the philosophy of people taking care of themselves, or peoples taking care of themselves, is probably the better of the two over having a global government. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And even if that does result in conflict sometimes, I think more often than not it doesn't. And
tribalism hasn't led to conflict in the past?
did I say it never happens? No. I said more often than not, it doesn't lead to open conflict.
It's the only cause for conflict. Literally, the only cause of conflict. It's the only cause of conflict.
I don't understand what you're trying to say, man. I don't think I do.
Tribalism is the cause for conflict. Your side has something I want. My side wants it. I'm going to take it.
Ooh, well, that's a little different, isn't it?
That's literally what you're describing. That is what your ideology will lead towards. Hard borders, where if you don't have a thing, you got to go get it. And if you are motivated enough to go get it, you'll take it because it's better for your people. It's what Russia's doing right now. It's what Israel's doing right now. They want the thing. They're going to take it. And they're justifying it by saying that they're from a different tribe. They're from a different type. They're not us. It actually is us. In Russia, they're saying, oh no, these are Russians. We're allowed to take this. Tribalism is the cause of the Russia conflict. Tribalism is the cause of the Palestinian conflict and Israeli conflict right now. Tribalism.
All right.
And Vivek is pushing for more tribalism. You'll be a member of the United States tribe, and we will do everything we can to make our tribe better and compete. He calls it competition, but I call it conflict.
Well, yeah, we should be focusing most of our resources on us to make our country better, yes.
Okay. That's, I think, the problem. If you're doing that to an extent, there is a balance again, as usual. If you're doing that to such a degree that you're holding down the other people's competition, or you're maybe stealing all their resources, like their oil resources, maybe, so that your country can benefit, they're going to be unhappy with that. They're going to violently oppose you someday. Maybe not right away, but they'll try and oppose you. They'll say, no, this is for us, that stuff like that. But that leads to conflict.
Okay.
That's the source of all conflict.
Fine.
That's what I'm saying. You're agreeing with me that tribalism is the source of all conflict. I would
Sure.
I would make the tribe larger to include everybody. I would make it so that all the people are included in the tribe, and I would lower the borders, and I would weaken the differences between us. I don't want a tiny pocket of people to feel like they are distinct and different from the pocket of people next to them, like in the States. I don't want the people of Alabama to compete specifically with the people of Louisiana, because I think that will lead to conflict.
Well, the people of Alabama and the people of California are very different from one another.
No, they're not.
Culturally, but they are, though.
They're not. They aren't. They're just people.
That's so reductionist on that. I'm sorry. No, that's
I'm
not how
being
it works.
inclusionary. I'm
And
including everybody into the people list. You're doing the tribalism thing again. The people of Alabama are so much different than California that they cannot get along, and they can't be expected to follow the same set of rules. So we need to draw a border between them so that they have to interact through what I would suggest is competition in the best terms, or conflict in the worst.
you mean through electing federal representatives to make decisions? Is that what you're talking about?
Sometimes, yeah. If we're going towards government rather than the corporate, sure.
Or what do you mean
I
corporate?
I wasn't talking. I was talking economically and corporate and societally rather than governmentally. I was talking society. So society of Alabama is so shockingly different from California.
Yeah, their values are completely different. Uh, the way people interact with each other in the state's completely different. Uh, their laws for what they're allowed to make are a lot different from one another. As a result, and yeah, they are a lot different from each other.
And
And
I want to bring them together. I don't want to draw
why?
why? Because they're better together. They're stronger together. They can live together or they can die alone.
Well, yeah, that's why we have this this contract between all the states that says like, hey, we'll raise an army together, so that if we get attacked, we can defend ourselves.
Okay. That's them standing together. I agree. And the society is not forcing things on you generally. You can drive from Alabama to California with very
Mhm.
little checkpoints and very few border crossing guards and very few um, differences in language. I mean, there's a few, a couple of small ones. Um, why don't we extend that type of unity to other parts of the world? I don't know why this whole nationalist thing happens.
Because what's good for the 330 million people in the United States may not be good for the billion people in China.
Can we not work together to make things better? You won't
That's called diplomacy. Yeah.
right. Okay, you won't get that if you're building giant walls, if you're building big barriers, if you're competing and convincing your people that your nation is first. You can't get peace, agreement, and unity if one person is on top and somebody's second and somebody's third and somebody's fourth and somebody's fifth. That's not unity. It's not coming together. Competition is the opposite of unity, is what I would suggest.
See, this is where you're saying this is a competition where there's people that, or there's countries that place in terms of rankings,
Mm-hmm.
but China's taking care of itself. The United States is taking care of itself.
Okay, so
And in the process of taking care of ourselves, we have gone to other countries and been like, hey, you have this and I have this. You want to trade? And sometimes it's like, yeah. And other times there's negotiation that involved. Well, okay, well, we'll give you this if in return for this and this other thing. Well, okay, cool.
and that is easier or more difficult if there's a giant difference between the two competitioning. If I'm competing with China and I want to win, and I agree with Vivek's sentiment here that America will be number one no matter what, and they also think that, it doesn't lead to coordination. It doesn't lead to unity. It leads to competition and conflict.
I don't think so at all. See, because let's say you've got a company, for example, like Amazon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some smaller online retailers than Amazon that you could say are in competition with Amazon.
Sure.
But if Amazon were to approach those smaller online retailers and offer a partnership where they do a certain amount of business together, do you think that those smaller online retailers would say no? Or do you think it's in their best interests to accept that partnership because it will, in the end, help them, even if it also helps Amazon?
That's partnership. That's not conflict or competition.
That's
Partnership
exactly what
is
diplomacy looks like.
great. And diplomacy gets harder if you say, I will always come out on top, doesn't it?
That doesn't have to be the end result every time. There doesn't have to be a winner and a loser when you do this.
More diplomacy, less competition. More diplomacy, less nationalism.
Now I see what's going on. You're suggesting that
yes.
nationalism and competition are synonymous with each other, and they're not.
They are. They absolutely are. He just put the two together. He just said nationalism is a competition.
Well, if he did that, I don't agree with him.
Okay.
They're not the same thing.
That's what he's saying. That's what he's pushing, and that's what I think that you're pushing as well, because you said America number one, I like competition. So
I do like competition.
I think you are equating them as well. Nationalism
but
and competition.
I don't think nationalism and competition are the same thing.
Of course they are. Of course they are. That's what nationalism is. Describe nationalism to me.
A country takes care of its people first.
First, interesting. So that's a placement, right? First.
As in,
and who comes second?
Our government
the other focuses
primarily on the interests of our people.
And the other people come second? And then maybe the Estonians come third, and then the Guatemalans come fourth?
Why does there have to be a ranking
that
here?
I'm describing.
I
don't think that they need to post
why are you taking the word first and then turning it into a ranking of who's the most important worldwide? No.
Why am I taking the word first
to the
and
Chinese
turning it into a
government?
ranking?
The Chinese government should be focusing on its people. The American government should be focusing on its people. Like this is not the Olympics where we're placing. I mean, you can absolutely be a nationalist government that focuses on its own people, and also, when there's a mutual benefit to be had, cooperate with other countries to achieve mutual goals and achieve trade and mutually beneficial agreements.
Then you're
without
not doing the
agreeing
nationalism. My
without
man, you
agreeing.
can't be both.
Hold on.
You can't.
Without agreeing to cede control over your government to another authority, a global authority.
I think what you just said is cognitively not incomprehensible. I think you've got what's that? Not cognitive bias. You're saying a thing and then you're saying the opposite of the thing in the same sentence, and I just can't comprehend why you would do so.
How is it possible that you could conflate diplomacy, where we agree on mutually beneficial decisions, with establishing a larger world government that is able to dictate policy to your country?
That sounds like imperialism.
What?
Well,
See, this is where...
Run it by me again.
That doesn't
what
make
was
sense.
It? Run it by me again.
How could you equate diplomacy or trade with establishing a world government that can dictate law to your country?
Those are two separate things.
They are absolutely two separate things.
Okay.
Yes. Which is the difference between
competition
a globalist and nationalist. No, they're not.
Nationalism and competition is the same thing. He described nationalism.
You can keep repeating it,
and then he described competition. He used the word competition and nationalism in the same sentence. He used it. He did it. You're doing it too. And that's why that's why we keep running around in circles, because I think those are the same thing. You don't.
They're not.
Think they're the same thing. They are. You said the word first. That's a competition, my man. If anything is first and everything else is not first, it's a competition.
No, it's not.
It literally is.
Okay, no. Okay, let's take the word first out of it then.
Okay,
how about
changing the definition? Okay.
No. It's going to mean the exact same thing, but it doesn't have the word first in it, so you won't be able to equate it with a competition.
Okay.
It's America should take care of American citizens. Yes or no?
I'm okay with that. Yes.
Okay. America should prioritize the well-being of American citizens.
Prioritize meaning first. Priority meaning the most important thing that you do. Prioritizing. That all means first.
Okay, so
there's a difference between those two definitions you gave.
What? So the American government, okay, in your estimation, then should send all of our money over to I don't know, Estonia, and give them all our stuff. Here you go.
Should we give them all our stuff? Is slippery slope? Is that what I'm suggesting? No. I'm saying that we should recognize that nationalism is a dangerous thing. It leads to conflict. If you want diplomacy, you have to de-escalate, cause less conflict, not more of it. Nationalism causes conflict. Competition causes conflict. If you want diplomacy, you have to abandon those two things, competition and nationalism. That's what I'm suggesting.
I don't think so at all. I think we just have a fundamental disagreement
here. And this is why
here.
I think that you're being... I can't remember the fucking name of it. It's like cognitive something. Cognitively in
thinking dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance. That's the one. You got it. Cognitive dissonance. I think you've got
Not
a cognitive dissonance there, saying that nationalism isn't competition, and using the word first when you describe nationalism. And I'm like, man, this is dissonance right here.
I just think you've got the wrong ideas in your head for what America first is supposed to mean. When it comes to the government's priorities for our spending and our...
The only people who use it are the people who are very much against left-wing ideology. The only people who say America first are not left-wingers. They're just not. I watched, and yeah, communism means bringing everybody together, and everybody coming together. So again, I think this is just the same thing that the people who say America first, like you suggested, are not interested in bringing people together. They're interested in drawing lines, creating division between tribalisms, different tribes.
I don't think that's the interest at all. I think the interest is well, let's boil it down as far as it goes. I have a family, and should my resources that I have go towards providing for my family, or should they go towards providing for everyone else?
You can provide for your people first. I'm okay with that. Well, okay. You should provide for the people that you
And
can.
does that mean that it's a competition between your family and the family down the street?
Yes.
No,
You're
that's not what that means at all.
you're competing. Yes, I know. There is always going to be some competition because there's not an infinite number of resources. I dig that. But policy-wise, national-wise, big government-wise, we shouldn't have our big government competing against another government.
I think you're being disingenuous because it's absolutely not a competition between you and the family down the street. And when you extrapolate that out to the national scale, right? That is what people mean by America first. It 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 doesn't have to be a competition with everybody else in order to have nationalism.
Vivek says it does. Vivek said it a minute ago. He said it does. And he said that Viktor Orban ought to be doing what's best for his people, and China ought to be doing what's best for their people.
And they should.
Okay, and
yes.
if that best for their people means conflict with someone else, that's just the game. That's just how the world is.
But usually it doesn't, though.
It always does. It only does. It's the only reason for conflict. We have gotten back to the original thing. We've gone around in circles. Is there any? I will give you the last word on this before we call it for the day.
No, I'm good.
Okay, so I'm going to take my hat off. And so yeah, this is what we do on Saturdays. I appreciate everybody in chat who's typing entire paragraphs that I can't read. I will go back through and read them later. If you're watching, if you're paying attention, press the sub button, press the follow button, press the subscribe button so that we can talk about this more often. Today is very heady. Yeah, Kissing Gonzo is very heady today. It's true.
Frog's gay.
Stursy just turned a frog gay. I appreciate that. You just turned a frog gay. Hope you're proud of yourself. Eternal Dweller, is it safer in a hat? Would you recommend it? The tinfoil hat
protects you from the 5G rays.
Right, it protects me from the 5G rays, yeah. And I think it protects me from the very dangerous thought control government thought control rays. So I need to avoid those to have certain conversations. So I will put the hat on when I need to, if I think I need to. Kissing Gonzo's been all over the place today. I appreciate it. Thank you for chatting. If you become a follower, you turn a frog gay, and it's a very awesome thing that you can do. We also have the Discord, so you can have all those complex, oops, if I hit the button properly, discussions. Go there, start a thread, have a discussion, and tell us all the things that you're feeling. We had a good convo today, Thomas.
Yeah.
I think we did good. We went around in circles a little bit at the end, so I got to call it off. And it's getting toward lunchtime. So I will be back on Monday to read the politics, look at the headlines, and feel them all out. We'll have TTS on, and then we'll play a video game on Monday night. On Wednesday, I'll do the same. Then you and I can go deep in depth and get philosophical on Saturdays. So that is...
Although remember, for the month of April, I will probably not be here.
Are you going to be here this coming Saturday?
I need to double check.
I'll I'll try and remember to put the things that we're going to be talking about into the chat so you can see them ahead of time. If you are watching, if you want us to talk about a specific subject, throw it into the Discord. Tell us what to talk about. If you've got a headline and you think it's important, bring it up and we'll look at it, and then we'll all feel it out together. And that is the entire stream. That's what we do. Hope you're having a good time. Did you have a good time today, Thomas?
Yep.
I did too. Okay, perfect. Everybody, have a good day. And that is it for us for today. Goodbye.